But welcome back. We're with our first candidate for Cohasset Board of Selectmen, Paul Carlson. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Mark, for having me on the show.
Thank you very much for joining us. And Paul, you know, I know that you've had an interview, a somewhat small one, in the Mariner. And in the Mariner, they gave just a small snapshot about you. You're a 33-year resident of Cohasset. They talked a little bit about your background. But you really are new to the political scene, except for the very exciting work that I know that you joined me in doing on the Cable Advisory Committee. But tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I earned my MBA at Columbia University in the Graduate School of Business. I spent about 30 years in the investment management business in Boston and rising to senior positions such as Director of Research and Head of Equity Strategy for a couple of companies. And then about 10 years ago, I started working overseas, helping to train local people in the former Soviet bloc countries in the use of capital markets. And we've developed successful capital markets in a number of those countries now, and they're doing just fine. But those were long-term assignments, those were resident assignments. We lived there, my wife was there with me, and we lived with the local people and got to know people, and it was just a wonderful time of our lives.
Well, it sounds like a fascinating work. We talked a little before we came on. And it must have been very gratifying to be able to build up capital markets almost from the ground up, right? I mean, they were under the Soviet Union, it's a very different kind of economic system.
There were no capital markets. You know, people had no idea what stocks were, what bonds were, what mutual funds were. And now two of the countries where I spent the most amount of time, Romania and Bulgaria, just recently joined the European Union on January 1. And that was a very, very exciting time. I think some of the best New Year's Eve parties in the world were in Romania and Bulgaria this year.
So do you see your interest in being a selectman kind of matching up with some of the skills that you developed in that capacity that you might go on to offer in a role as selectman?
Well, when you're going into a new or a different culture, a new culture to yourself, you have to exercise a lot of diplomacy, have an open mind. People are used to just doing things differently than you are. And to the extent that you can work with people from diverse backgrounds and diverse interests, it's all very positive. You know, I don't think the cultural issues in Cohasset are the same as they are in some of the countries I've been in, but you know, the issue is being able to work with people and get along with them and try to find common ground.
Now, as far as the experience in local efforts, Pat mentioned that you're on the Cable Advisory Committee, and you also did some work on some subcommittees at the school committee, right? Right.
I was on the Technology Strategy Committee, and worked on that, and we presented our findings to the school board, I guess, about 1.5 years ago. I also drive for fish, and you know, looking for other areas to get involved in the town.
Sure. Why do you want to be a selectman?
Well, I think with my background and experience, I think I have a lot to add, I have a lot to bring to the Board of Selectmen. You know, I have a strong finance background, which I think would be very useful for particularly analyzing a number of the issues that come along, dealing with our large debt overload. We have the largest debt per capita of any town or city in the Commonwealth, and that's something we need to deal with. How do we get that down and more manageable, because it chews up a lot of our budget just for that particular obligation. And a lot of the issues that we deal with are financial. Plus, I think I have you know, my analytical background will enable me to work through some of the issues that get presented to the selectmen.
Now, you have, at least I assume, because I got a mailing today from your organization, and so I'm assuming that your campaign slogan is "For a Unified Cohasset," since it was on this publication. Yes. Why did you pick that particularly as a slogan?
Well, after the divisiveness of this past spring, where you know, people got so angry at each other on both sides, and particularly a lot of the letters that were in the Mariner after the election showing, you know, just a huge amount of anger and so forth. I think it's important to bring the town together. There is the group Together Cohasset that has been working. I've attended all of their meetings so far, and I think that they've made some progress. There was a steering group made of people from all 4 poles of Cohasset that got together and came up with a common position statement. And I think that's the type of progress that we need.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as I guess the most important issue or the most divisive issue that you feel you can contribute to help?
Well, I think the most divisive issue in town is clearly the schools. The selectmen have very little say over the schools. All they get to do is vote on whether or not to recommend that the town meeting approve the school budget. But that doesn't, that can be overridden by town meeting very easily. As far as the selectmen's issues themselves, I don't think there's a major issue there, but there are a lot of smaller issues. A lot of people are very concerned about the cost of our fire department. And one of the recent benchmark studies that was shown in the Mariner show that ours is far more expensive than other towns of our size. I know there's a subcommittee of the selectmen that is working on that issue, and I'd be very interested to see what their proposals are. But we have to have good fire coverage. We also have to have good EMT coverage, which is what most of the fire department seems to work on. Mm-hmm. And we also have a major issue with the trains coming through, because we have to have good fire coverage even when the trains are going through town. Mm-hmm. If there's a fire on the other side, the firemen have to be able to get there. Mm-hmm. It all takes planning and work.
Right. So is that the answer, you think, planning and work, based on the fact that I know that so many times people can easily identify the needs? We need good coverage in the fire department, we need quality schools and staffing, but yet we can't afford it, or we need a solution to the tax burden that it causes. What can you do to be part of that solution, rather than, I think what so many people have done is just kind of identify the needs and said, this is overwhelming, or this is embedded, or this is due to state mandates.
Mm-hmm. Well, a number of other towns in our state have the same problems. Some of them have addressed them more effectively than we have. I would like to go and visit some of those towns and see what they're doing, and see what we can learn from them. Maybe it's a matter of, to get back to the fire department, just for the purpose of discussion. Maybe it's a matter of more efficient scheduling. Maybe we ought to have more of a call service. I don't know what it is, but we have to study it and come to a conclusion and make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
You said that, in your view, the schools are the most divisive issue in town, and I assume you mean the budgeting and so forth. What can be done? There seems to be a real pressure there for the overrides. I mean, overrides have been turned down now year after year, after having been adopted year after year, budget overrides. Yet the costs for the teachers' contracts, everything costs more. Mm-hmm. Is it possible in your mind for the town to live within 2.5 for more than a year or two in a row?
Well, I would like to see the schools. I would like to study the school situation more. I've looked at benchmark towns. There are a number of towns that have much better results on the MCAS results and other tests like that than we do, that spend a lot less per student than we do. So I don't think that the school issue is a matter of money. I think maybe it's a matter of leadership, or what's going on in the schools, or maybe more efficient allocation of the resources there. Again, that's up to the school committee. I would like to see them go and visit some of these other towns, and find out what they're doing. Why are they getting such much better academic results than we are for less money? I don't think that they have a better gene pool than we do.
Mm-hmm. Along those lines,